Hello everyone, Giant Beard JJ here. Welcome to my channel. And today we're going to talk about fans, but not these kind of fans. It's actually the small fan that is located on the 7th gen Asetek Pump for some of the high-end AIOs on both the MSI S360 and also the Ryujin II AIO. So the reason I was talking about this, I want to talk about these fans because these fans were claimed to be able to cool down the VRM temperatures by a significant amount looking at the website when introducing these kind of fans. It is a good approach, I would say, but after some testing and review, I feel like it's rather disappointing. So let's take a look. Okay, to begin with, we have to talk about what are VRMs. So VRMs is short for voltage regulator module, which regulates the voltages that's going to your CPU. So it's actually located in these areas on your motherboard, and it controls the voltages flow from your power supply to your CPU. So it is very important. As we all know that the power supply provides three different kinds of voltages: the 3.3 volts, the 5 volt and 12 volts. So, but if you do overclocking, you will know that the operating voltages for your CPU is somewhere around 1 volts to 1.5 volts. You can't get really close to 1.5, or it's going to fry your CPU, or if you get to really low to 1 volts, it's probably going to shut down. So having a steady intake of voltages is really important if you do any kind of overclocking. So that's why these VRMs are really important, and also important to operating in a safe temperature. So there's actually three components of the VRM. So this is the capacitors, and these are the choke, which regulates the voltage, and also there's the MOSFET that's located under these giant heatsink. So for these premium motherboards, they usually tends to have really large giant heatsink for the VRM area, so that it get really nice heat dispersion if you do any kind of overclocking. So now let's talk about the fans. So let's assume that here's the water block fan, except for the real water block fan is much smaller than this one. And what it does is it's kind of facing downwards, so it's sucking wind from the top and then blows it all the way through your pump and then to all these areas. So supposedly it's going to take out the heat all the way in this area, also on your RAM area, and also some of the, if you put a M.2 SSD here, is going to take out the heat from here as well. So what it designs to do is to cool off all of these areas. So but is it really helpful? We have to do some tests and see how it does. So let's get started. So to start off, let's take a look at the setting here. So right now, the fan is not spinning at all. So for the water block fan, and where the CPU is also not running, as we can see some of the temperature right here under idle. So the MOSFET is 42 degrees Celsius, M.2 36 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Celsius, I'm sorry. So it's looking fine, and what we're going to do is to FPU stress our CPU to check whether these temperatures going to change a lot in terms of having the water block fan spinning at maximum speed versus not spinning. And also we're going to test out the both of the temperature on the actual motherboard and also the noise on that. So let's do that right now. Okay, so looking at the the heat sink right here is 39 degrees Celsius approximately. This part is also 39 degrees Celsius, and the capacitor down there is around 33, 34 degrees, 35, and the choke is around the same degrees Celsius. Okay, so let's see the noise right now. Sound level. Okay, this is around like 52 dBA. Well, it's only solely coming from the GPU itself. This is a Supreme Max 3070 Ti, And now let's stress test the FPU and see what the temperature gets for all these components. So right now I'm running a Cinebench R20 with the cores overclocked to 5.2 G, and we can see the temperature here without the fan spinning. It's, MOS is around 44, and yeah, the temperature is basically remains pretty similar. Let's take a look at the actual hardware temperature. So for these, it's 1 degree Celsius higher for the heatsink, approximately. And looking at the capacitors, those were like 6 degrees Celsius higher, probably 37. And the choke, it's like 3 to 4 degrees Celsius higher. So right now I'm in MSI core liquid, as I can see that the fan is currently not spinning, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all these fans to the max, and it's going to definitely going to get really loud here. It's so hard to move this one. Okay, and I have tuned this a little bit because if we don't tune that, for some reason the fan won't accelerate. So hit apply here. Now witness the sound improvement. So previously we have around something around 50 or something. Right now we're looking at 70 dBA, which is significantly higher and noisier. And definitely this is not some sound that you can tolerate. Just listen to it yourself. Yep, that's crazy. So I can not feel much rain coming out, to be honest. Although the fan is spinning at maximum, I don't even feel anything coming out. The only wind coming out is from the GPU itself. But let's turn on the Cinebench again and look at the temperature. So I'm turning on the fans itself. So the MOS right now gets to 44 because it's not running, and let's also look at the temperature on the hardware itself. Still 40, 38, 39, 40, 32. So it seems like the capacitor and choke is 2 degrees Celsius, a little bit lower than it's supposed, and then it was running. So let's hit the run down here and look at the temperature goes. So remember previously it goes to 48 or something on the MOSFET. So let's look at what it gets to right now. It's 45 right now. Oh, by the way, the room temperature is 23.5 degrees Celsius. So, 46 with the M.2, 36.5, 46.5 degrees Celsius. $46.5. So it's a very short-term testing, but I've also run some benchmark myself with the AIOs 64 FPU test, and to be honest, I don't even see a temperature decrease at all. Let's look at the actual hardware temperature on that. So still 40, 39, so slightly decrease, 40.1 degrees Celsius, and the the capacitor, so slightly cooler, around like 2 degrees Celsius cooler, which doesn't do much. And just to show you that, you got the cover, that the fan is spinning at full speed right there, and it's very noisy. You know, you cannot expect this because like if you look at the wind coming out from here, it's been blocked by the mounting bracket. Like, it's not doing much. Okay, so now we have to take a deeper look at the fan that's being applied to some higher end AIOs on the 7th gen Asetek. I'm not sure what you're feeling about this, but I'm definitely very disappointed because if you're using this kind of AIO, the higher chance that you're going to have a really nice motherboard, such as the Asus, you know, Dark Hero motherboard. So for these motherboard, a very common thing about these is they will have a giant heatsink, so that the heat dispersion, you know, by all means is going to be fairly enough if you do some overclocking on your CPU. And if actually you are doing like a very hardcore overclocking, I'm pretty sure that nobody's actually going to use an AIO to do it. The people will just use custom loop or even like, you know, liquid nitrogen to do that. So I doubt that you are able to use a AIO to work on any of this. So with that said, so let's talk about the pros and cons. So the pros, I would say that's a good try. So it's actually you know, very creative to put a fan in there to actually help the system to cooling down, at least the VRM area with the M.2 and also RAM a little bit. That's a very good start on that. But that's the only pro that I can think of. But for the cons about this is, first of all, it's generating a lot of noises. So as I measured, you know, while I was doing testing, it's going to add like at least like 20 dBA to your system, which is actually pretty unbearable if I turn the fan at any speed. So it's whining. It's even louder than your GPUs and you know, and other fans in your system. So I would say that that's not very helpful. And the second con about that is it doesn't even bring that much of a cooling capacity. So we have measured the temperatures on the we have to check the temperatures on the MOSFET. Of course, it's covered by the giant heatsink, so it's not being cooled by the wind at all. And also for the even the capacitors, there isn't much of a difference, you know, as they advertise on their website, and also for the temperature on the heatsink. So it's not doing that much for these premium motherboards at the same time. And the third thing is, you know, like I mentioned earlier, hardcore overclockers wouldn't even use AIOs. They will use custom loops, they will use liquid nitrogen. So having these kind of fan in there doesn't do much in terms of to those hardcore overclockers. So also the last thing, as I already mentioned at the start of the video, that these AIOs are very expensive. That's their top lineup. You know, they are expensive because they are including a fancy LCD screen. They are having a water block fan in there, and they're adding some unique textures to their AIO that make it extra fancy. But in terms of cooling abilities, a very standardized Arctic liquid cooler or some of the AIOs without that LCD screen or these water block pump fans can do similar or even better cooling capacities to your system. So it's more like, you know, what side you are on. Are you looking for more like a fancy build in, you know, regardless of the price you're going to pay, or if you're going to look for a very, you know, a very practical AIOs that's for your system, so that your system can have the maximum capacity regardless of the RGBs and stuff. So it actually depends. So, but I would say that as long as there's needs for these AIOs, they're going to produce this one generation after the other. Now we have seen that EVGA is also producing an AIO that can show some you know, stats on your system. this has become a trend. It is, I can't say it's a bad trend, it's actually a good trend because, you know, if you're sticking to a particular brand like me, if sticking with ROG, you're expected to have some, you know, ability to choose, you know, your own brand kind of cooling solutions. So definitely having these premium features for your lineup is useful, but, you know, for some people that doesn't even validate that, it is not meaningful to them at all. Okay, so yeah, here's my thoughts on the water block cooling fans. You know, I hope you guys like it. If you really like it, click on the subscribe button down there, and also, you know, if you have any comments or anything you want to talk to me, just feel free to put it in the comment section down below. I will try to reply to you as soon as possible. And yeah, I'll hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye.